I was kind of excited about doing this hand canvasback, but the more I worked on it, I came up with two problems I didn't really like. It's a Tupelo in oils, and well, just briefly what I did like. The pictures I got off the internet for the pattern, I wanted to define this neck putting on the breast more. I don't think I got that done the way I wanted to do it. Then the second thing is I had a really nice hand canvasback steady skin that I was using for reference, and I had all kinds of pictures off of the internet of hand canvasbacks. And boy, if you can tell me you can find 3 hand canvasbacks that are plumaged the same way, good luck. And I was trying just to do a mature hen. So when I started doing the back and the sides, I had different gradations on the base of the feathers. And I looked at it and I just thought, it sucks. Because then you have to come back and do vermiculations on the end of the feather. And I thought, I don't want to do no damn vermiculations. I don't want to do no damn vermiculations. So after I figured I had screwed up enough, I just repainted the back and the sides, and then I did all those damn vermiculations. And I tried to make them as big as I could, you know, so I wasn't taking 24 days. But anyway, so that's what happened. Sometimes you get it done, sometimes you don't. And that's the end of my story.
You're sticking to it.
Thanks.
I'll take that with me.
Yeah. It'll be cash, right?
What's next?
Next up, Matt.
I can go. Sure. I brought 3 decoys along that came from from Jack Tyson's rig. The Tyson family from Mankato were very well-known sportsmen. Jack was a gun nut, and he was the curator for the museum down by in southern Minnesota. And he most of the firearms in the museum came from his personal collection. They were duck hunting fanatics. He had sons who were Art and Leon. Art was known for making duck decoys and duck calls and crow calls. They're both well documented in both of my books on duck calls and decoys. These decoys, so both the sons also made decoys. These decoys actually, so Jack was born in 1870. He had a rig of decoys that he hunted over. So those decoys were probably somewhere around 100 years old and hunted in Minnesota. Recently, the family had asked me to sell Jack's decoys, which I have done. I've sold every one but these 3 decoys. The difference with these 3 decoys is the astute person looking at these right now will realize these are not the ones that Jack made. The ones that Jack made have all been sold, and half of the ones that were not made by him but were part of his rig. These 3 exist. These 2 are herders, and that is probably Mason.
Solid body.
Solid body. These decoys floated into their hunting rig on Swan Lake and were acquired by them and then repainted in their style. This is what we call the second style. It's very well documented in the book, and here's some of the decoys, and here's a picture from '39 with the decoys on top of this vehicle that Leon is sitting on, and you can see the decoys actually in those photographs. Anyways, at some point he refreshed all the decoys, and he did this brown paint with a nail scratch on it, and he used a what I could only call as a teal or turquoise for the speculums. If you look at most of these decoys, if you look underneath it, you can see the old brown paint pattern on them, and that's shown in, well documented in our book as well. But anyways, they're interesting decoys from the standpoint of that they belong to Jack Tyson and were hunted over on Swan Lake and Mankato and all throughout that area. These are the last 3 that I have left, so I probably want just to take a look at it. I think they're kind of cool because we have so much history on them, but they're also for sale. I'm selling them for $50 a piece, so if anybody wants them, just come see me or pick one up and come see me afterwards if it interests you. So a little piece of Minnesota history.
What did Jack's decoys go for about?
His decoys I sold for about $150 a piece, depending on condition, but
Yeah.
about $150 for most cases.
See, Danny, let's hope for you.
So, we all have those guys we hunt with, right? So, I have some guys that I hunt with that are decoy shooters. And they complain every year that they don't get to hunt over my hand-carved and hand-painted birds. So, one of the guys said, can I buy some? Then I don't worry about getting shot. I said, okay, because they're expensive. He said, well, make something that I can shoot. So I made 3 different dozen. So these are bluebills. And then I made a set of ringnecks as well.
Golden eye.
Or golden eyes, so I have another set of ringnecks cut out that I'm making for somebody else. They're, depending on where you buy it, it's 5mm board or 1/8" board. It doesn't measure that in any possible caliper that you ever try to find. You can get 4 dozen birds out of a single sheet of 4x8 plywood. The arms are the expensive part right now. I also did this set of, you wanted a set of geese, but because you can't make, an obvious different bird on each one like I did with the others where there was a hen, I jokingly told them I'll make a drake on one side and a hen on the other. And after about 25 minutes, he called me back, calling me every name in the book, because I tricked him on that one. So I made these resters instead. So each one of the arms on these sets has a rester, preener, rester, whatever you want to call it. I tried to keep the paint as simple as possible. I still overdid it. What are you going to do? So I've come to figure out that a dozen of the same thing is about as much as you want to do before you start really screwing up and not taking your time on stuff. So, yeah, my neighbors weren't happy about it because of all the sawdust, but it was an enjoyable adventure, but I don't know that I'd want to do it all the time.
There's an idea for it. Charge them money per pellet that hits your decoys.
Right?
10 bucks a pellet.
Whitefish, this is made out of pine
Right at the
and aluminum.
Come out here,
Come on here.
Sure. Got a spearing decoy. It's made out of white pine and the fins are aluminum. It's weighted with lead and has tack eyes that are painted. A lot of coats of varnish on top. And then I just did a shorebird the other day. I get I had Indeeder flyers in the mail all the time when they have an auction. My wife goes through the flyer and picks out a decoy she likes, and then I make it. just to be a nice guy and give brownie points. So anyway, and I kind of have to like it too. And then they're usually all antiqued, and so I beat them up a little bit and throw them in the rocks, and I put a coat of matte finish over the top. Sand a little bit so it looks like the paint's been worn.
The base is that this piece of pine?
Just piece of pine, yeah.
Yeah.
And oak dowel for the bill, and the body is a single piece of cedar, and then the head is attached. I shouldn't attach them quite so good because most of the old ones there's a little gap and something. I'll probably try that next time.
Did you curve that bill, or was it just a real?
No, I cut it out of a piece of
A big one.
piece of Norman. And I got a couple. I'll bring more brochures next month. But I'm on this art crawl meander. It's up and down the Minnesota River Valley from Ortonville to Granite Falls. There's 40 different artists, and you can travel around and visit anyone you want. And it goes for 3 days. The first weekend in October, 1, 2, and 3. Lots of good stuff.
Well, I'm gonna start out here. Matt's, I've been making a lot of knives this year. I actually haven't been doing as much carving. But Matt asked me if I could try making a knife that was a little more kid-friendly. In other words, we had a boy who took our cut-resistant gloves that Tom had provided for us, and he decided he was going to see if they were stab resistant, and we found out they're not stab resistant. One of the things Matt encouraged me to do is come up with a design that doesn't have a sharp tip on it. And I came up with a couple different versions. This one's actually an old straight edge razor. A couple of them are straight edge razors. I've tried using them. I still like that old point on there, but it was interesting to try a couple different designs. This is another one where the tip is rounded back.
What's the blade made out of?
These two are straight edge razors. Myron, what was Myron's last name? Pardon?
Asper.
Hasper.
A-S.
Myron knew that I made a bunch of knives for the kids, and he made up a whole bunch of blades, and I have no idea how many he made for us. He got out a blank and he said, "These are for you to make however you want to." Well, I think I finally, after about 18 knives that I've made, I think this is the actual last one that Myron had made for me. So this one's got a little special place in my heart here. The handles were different materials that I came across. I like this black walnut. Was black walnut, when it gets to the outer bark or the outer wood, is a lighter color, and that's not that desirable for gun stocks or anything else. But apparently it's not good for much of anything else, because I found this one in an attic that was supporting a plumbing stack that was no longer needed to be in there anymore. So I brought it down. I thought that's kind of a cool look to it. That's another one that's got a little bit of that black walnut. The other black walnut was thrown into one of my dumpsters that I said, I'm not leaving that in there. So that's why a lot of my knives are black walnut. Go back to this one. Dave Jackson had us, not Dave, but Dave's family had us down last year, and he had, I think this was labeled Brazilian mahogany, and I had no idea what it was going to look like when I finished it, but I put a blade on this. I believe it's a Warren blade that I had laying around, not attached to anything else. I put it in there, and it turned out a lot more red than I thought it was. It's actually kind of a pretty color, I think. But
What'd you seal it with?
I used gun oil. The same stuff that you'd use on your shotgun.
Yeah.
I like that a lot better than acrylics and polyurethanes, because polyurethanes always, when you get, your hands are all sweaty, they always come up to them.
Birds with Casey stuff?
Pardon?
The birds with Casey gun on, or the
Yeah, just,
sock?
it's harder to find these days, but, I don't know if anybody's interested in these or not, but Todd Molka gave me, he said he had a whole bunch of these blades. These are Warren blades. He gave me about 100 of them in a package. And I've made a handful of knives, and there's no way I'm ever going to use up all of those knife blades.
I have about five more packets.
More
just
5 more
like
packages. He told me that they were a much bigger package than what they were thinking they were going to be getting. If anybody's interested in these blades, if you want to try your hand at making a knife, it's a great way to do it. They are a little bit rusty, you need to clean them up a little bit, but they do clean up nicely. It does have the kid-proof tip on it that Matt was asking for, so that's why I included this one in there. But if anybody's interested in these, if you want to know, it's very simple to actually make a handle for these.
Yeah.
Is that good for detail work on head?
It can be used for anything.
I mean, does it work? I mean,
I could most certainly donate the blades.
No, I'm donating.
Fighting now.
The other part is I got a kick out of this. I lost my dad back in January of 2020, and we lost Dave Jackson around that same time. We were invited down to his house, and then we had, of course, Don Matson had stuff brought over here, and we had Jim Bauman stuff brought here. And I started noticing a recurring theme. I've come to the conclusion that it's every old guy's prerogative, not prerogative, it's their responsibility to come up with at least one container of assorted nails and screws, and sometimes they'll have them separated, but they're always going to be separated and used for something somewhere on down the line when they've got nothing better to do than sit and pull all of those out. Had a lot of time, had a lot of those kind of containers like that. Also noticed that we ended up with a whole bunch of patterns. And I don't know whose patterns I was going through, but apparently you guys, before I joined the club, did coot, because there was a Tom Fleming pattern in amongst all of these guys' stuff there that I was going through.
Tom made coots.
Any idea when that would have been?
When did the club want that? They made coop about 10 years ago. wasn't it?
Well, my very first,
Well, I got the pattern, I wonder if it's got a date on it.
my very first duck that I ever tried carving was supposed to be a widgeon, and I had no idea what I was doing. It was the ugliest looking bird you'd ever want to see. I thought it looked more like a coot than it did a widgeon, so I painted it up to look like a widgeon. I was to tell my kids this story. After a while, I thought, that's the ugliest looking coot I've ever seen, and it ended up in my parents' fireplace. I burnt up my very first decoy. So I found a pattern that was much nicer than what I had concocted way back then. I decided I'm going to give a try at making a coot decoy. So this is, I almost feel like I've come full circle. Anyway, red cedar. Haven't keeled it yet. But, just kind of a fun little project. Found it in patterns of somebody that I don't even remember whose stack of patterns this were in.
Last month I brought down just a carved and sanded mallard decoy. So this past month I put the finishing touches to it. So it probably is an 1/8 inch bigger than when I started. Every side's been repainted a couple times, but the end result, I guess I'm pleased with it. But Again, you know, as we talked about here a few minutes ago, airbrushing. So this is kind of 50-50, half airbrushing, half brushing, kind of a combination. So you see a lot of templates cut out with airbrush. You see some stencils. But it's kind of a shortcut to kind of speed the process along. So it's it makes the feathers go on quicker, but you spend a lot of time cleaning airbrushes. So they have a good side and a bad side. So that's what this is.
Hollow or solid?
Nice going.
Is that hollow or solid?
It's hollow.
Oh.
Yep.